certain businesses, and I wanted to experiment and get real world experience on certain things before I actually applied it into the education realm. Because I wanted to be able to ask certain philosophy questions and understand exactly what was going on in the market and use that tool as I moved along in real world experience and actually grew with it. Rather than understanding and learning the system and letting that system dictate exactly who I was. So that's the difference of philosophy and actually who I was at all when I actually did it. Because what you do is you learn systems on how they are actually created now through work experience. You know what I'm saying? It's because of what somebody said and what somebody put in place. You know? From a real world's perspective, you actually learn through experience and actually other people's teaching and model it yourself into what you actually want to do and actually how you want to apply it. So it's different philosophies for different people and exactly how you want to apply stuff. And that's what you can actually learn on the different levels. If you want to be traditionalized and you want to master a craft, then actually you go full time in that craft and do that. If you actually want to model your life and you actually want to change certain things, you can, I would say, hey, look, you can look at the part-time because things might be changing around you and you might want to adjust with what's going on around you at all. And that's the difference between full-time and part-time, because the people that are going full-time, they're going all the way into that field, regardless of what's going on. They're getting specialized in that field. So their experience levels and their networks are getting specialized in that field, where they're going to be mastering that craft. If you know what I'm saying, for me, I don't care what the craft is. I want to be able to create things the way I want to create them. So that's the difference on the two of them. I adjust how the world adjusts and all. So, and that's the difference between philosophies on exactly how you want to do things and all. And it's just a matter of what your passion is and what you want to do in life and all. So that's the difference between part-time and full-time for me.
Thank you for those comments. So we briefly talked, question?
Yeah,
sure.
Question. Kind of piggybacking off of what you just started talking about, what are the advantages or disadvantages of going for your MBA right out of college or undergrad versus having more experience in the workplace and then going back? I've heard that like MBA is not as valuable if you don't have the work experience to apply to like,
so
what you're learning.
it's I'll say it to you this way. It's like driving a car. When you first get a car, you know what I'm saying, you think it's the greatest thing in the world until you get a better car. And that's what it is. Like sometimes your experience level of what you're actually doing, you don't know what the experience is like because you know what I'm saying, you only have one focus right now. That's the reason why like a lot of times they tell you, most MBAs tell you to be out of school maybe 3 to 5 years or something like that before you actually go back for that, because you don't know exactly what you want at that time frame. Because you get to a point, and this is my wording, you're tainted to what your model is, what you're actually been taught so far. So if you only know one way of doing business, how do you actually know what you actually want to do? And that's the question you got to ask yourself. Because if you're just stuck one way all the time, then how do you actually know what else the opportunities are out there? And that's the difference where he'll say, or Allan will comment, say, hey, look, if you go full-time, you get a chance to experience that from other people that you're around at all. And if you're working, you get a chance to hop around, and then you can say, I like this, I don't like this. And then you can go, you know what I'm saying, go full-time, part-time. That's the reason why when I did it, when I was doing it part-time, because I was bouncing around trying to find out exactly what was there. You know, what was out there, so I can say, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Allan knew from a young age what he wanted to do. He knew exactly he wanted to be in the financial realm at all. You know, because he had a good experience, he had a good, you know, saying good philosophy on how he felt as far as his passion is concerned. So that's what he went after. He just didn't know what model he wanted to go after. Once he found the model, then he was like, I'm gonna pursue this full time at all. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's I think 3 to 5 years is kind of the number, like has been mentioned, or maybe even going lower, maybe 2 to 5 years. And like again, and I'm speaking from the perspective of going full time, going to a top 30 program. From that perspective, you're not going to find a lot of those programs that would take folks right out of college. And there's few exceptions to that. Like Harvard has a new program where they take a very, very small number of folks right out of college. NYU just started a program like that where they take a very, very small number of folks right out of college. But on average, these programs are looking for folks that have at least 2 years of work experience. What's great though is that it takes you about a year to apply to business school. So like, it's, what is it, May right now. If you want to get in and get a fellowship, applications are kind of due October, November, December in that window of time. You know, so if you graduated last year and you want to start in the fall of 16, like you're starting right now, and by the time you get there, you'll already have that second year of experience. And then on the flip side, what do the employers want? You know, like employers want someone that's had 3 to 5 years of experience, you know, with an MBA from a great school. And there's, you know, a lot of, if you start looking at, you know, go to the National Black MBA Conference, you'll start to see there's a lot of jobs for that, people that fall into that category, people that are, you know, 3 to 5 years. So I think, you know, even the schools that are letting people in with less experience, I think they're almost doing them a disservice, because they'll find that they're not getting those same, you know, 6-figure job opportunities. You know, like I have friends that, you know, did a 5-year program, the 5th year being the MBA, and they came out and they took jobs that folks that just did 4 years of school took, right? Because the employers didn't value it as much as they did had you coupled it with a few years of work experience. So I think that 2 to 5 year period is great. And I also think, you know, in terms of going full time, only from that perspective, you can get to a point where you've taken too much time. You know, like somebody with 35 years of experience going back to get an MBA full time is not going to find as many opportunities as the person with three years. So it's not one of those situations where, you know, the most experience is the best. It's almost like for those who are going full time, again, from my perspective, there's like an optimal amount of time, right? And that is that 2 to 5 year window, in my opinion.
I would agree. Definitely, organizations are looking for that experience, and I would agree that I would actually even say the 2 to 4 range as well of experience coupled with your MBA. And that's what they, you know, would consider a top talent type of person that would have that education piece along with the business knowledge behind it.
All right, thank you for those comments. You talked earlier about executive MBA programs from the financial perspective, but you know, going to the most social/career fit, how do you evaluate an executive MBA program, and how do you best determine if it's the right fit for you? Sonya, I'd like to start with you.
Just to expand on what I said a little bit earlier in regards to the important thing about executive MBA program is sponsorship. I think that's the most important thing. It's, again, it takes a lot of time and it is very costly to pursue. And it's really more intended for senior level, executive level people, really. And those are typically, you know, it's typically going to be an older demographic of individuals. And, you know, but if you fall into that, then that should work for you. But, I mean, but it is a full-time, somewhat of a, well, it's actually considered, anything that's not full-time is considered part-time, basically.
If you're already an executive, like what would be the point of getting an executive MBA? Like what does it give you?
Credentials.
Well, it's you're getting the MBA credentials, as he mentioned. Also, you may want to just even further your career. You may want to go into a different track within your career. Typically, it's the individuals that want to stay within their organization, but just want to get to the next level or get to, or it could be actually quite a few. It's more of a personal goal. You know, because they're already, like you just said, they're already at that senior level, but it's just something that they've always wanted to do, never had a chance to do, never had the time to do.
And I think in general, not just exec, but I think you learn stuff in business school. Like it's sure it's a credential, but the things that I learned, it's having a framework for solving business problems. It's okay, and I'll give you some examples. Let's say I need to figure out whether to, you know, in the medical field, whether to fund, you know, drug A or drug B, right? You've got to run financial models. You've got to figure out how much needs to go into it, how long is it going to take to get the drug approved, what's the revenue side going to look like on the other end, like that. But being able to use that same type of framework to apply to a lot of different things. You can use that sort of analysis to do a real estate transaction. think about a marketing budget. Like, should I invest in billboards or direct mail, right? So it's critical thinking from a business perspective that you learn, and I think organizations value that. So there's a lot that you do learn in business school that really helps, especially folks who've got a technical background, get them to the business side, right? Even though they might be an executive, it could be in a very technical perspective. When I think about people that are, famous people who got MBAs, I mean, Colin Powell has an MBA, right? Like learning how to run military organizations, how to fund budgets, and how to make strategic decisions. We've had presidents, George Bush, I hate to say, had an MBA. You'll find that, guys, that run, major sports organizations have MBAs. So I think it's a critical set of decision-making frameworks that you develop by getting an MBA that are valuable, and I think that's one of the reasons why people go back.
It's also another way that executives satisfy their IDP requirements. That's their, typically their individual development plans or any type of executive development, personal development plans, or professional development plans. So they may use that as a vehicle to do that as well.
I guess my whole opinion about it is that once you get there, once you get to the executive level, then you can evaluate that. My thing is that as a technical person, if I was beating between an executive MBA and a degree, I would probably go PhD, because the simple fact is, I think almost, it might not take as much, but the credentials from a technical side, it would outweigh the executive MBA, because if you're in the business field, it probably means a lot in gold. For me, from a technical side, a PhD means much more. So that's the reason why I said, from a technical side of it, if I had to make a choice, I would probably make a choice to go PhD rather than executive, because of where, exactly the credentials that will hold in my field. Like if I was in the pharmaceutical world, I would definitely do PhD. I would do a PhD. But from the finance, because of what the tier is, I would probably go executive MBA. That's what. And I think it's about the field of choice that you're actually trying to operate in as you go forward.
Yeah, it's not an MBA is not a technical degree. It's more of a management, a strategy, a leadership type degree. Like folks that want to be CEOs, would go that route, right? Like you'll find that CEOs can run a company. They might not know the science behind it, but they can run that company using a business framework. And so, you guys might make that decision. Do I want to be a technician, specialize, and know everything there is to know about a certain technology or science, or you might decide to be more of a general manager and be more, in the management of people and the leadership of organizations. Not to say that you can't do both, but with going to Ben's point, that PhD is going to be more, or a master's degree in an engineering field would be more of a technician, a technical degree.
And I think that's one of the comments why we always say 3 to 5 years experience on what you're doing, because most of the tier levels of when you're first getting into a company, you're working, you're not managing. So it's a difference of levels at all. Once you're 3 years or 5 years in, then you start managing or you're supervising or something else. So your mindset on exactly what you're doing changes a little bit more. So that's the reason why they, a lot of times business schools, when they say you jump right into business school, it's for the development of yourself, because you might not, your mindset might not have developed to a point where you can actually understand exactly what that business degree actually can benefit you to be. That's all. So that's it.
So at this time, I have to turn our attention back to the audience and, ask, what do you think about the MBA program? The first thought that comes to your mind. We'll start with Mr. Schumann.
One.
First thought, with MBA program, what do you think?
I think it depends on what your career track is. Like if you're playing to stay technical, if you're playing to manage people.
Technical versus managerial.
My initial thought would be expensive, but
Expensive.
that could be another option.
All right, expensive. All right.
Time commitment.
Time commitment.
I was thinking the same thing as
Time commitment as
Yeah,
well too?
Opportunity.
Opportunity.
I see it as a learning tool, honestly, to kind of further where I am currently. If it was something I would consider to be something that I would look at to further where I am currently and sharpen kind of what I know or what I think I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I look at it as a degree that gives you more options.
Opportunity, options, finance. And yourself?
My first thought also was
Expensive as well too.
I actually want to retract my.
What was the first thought, man?
It's not necessarily money. I would have to say business, because honestly, when I think of and when I've thought of the MBA in the past, I don't assume that everybody who does it is successful, and therefore sees money from it. And that would actually lead to a question I might have.
All right, so if the panel could talk about, some of those thoughts, perhaps there might be some misconceptions about MBA programs in general. So I'll open up the panel to discuss yourself with you then.
Like I said, it can be expensive depending on what you're doing. Like I said, if you're funding it yourself, it can be expensive. But the main thing is, like Allan pointed to a lot, is that if you're looking for money, there's money out there. Because, like I said, you got to understand, education, there's a lot of people that pay for you to get smarter, or as a whole. Like I said, it's just a matter of how hard you're willing to look for it. That's all. Because education is key to the life of business in America and globally as a whole. So if you're willing to look for the money's out there. Whether or not you put a proposal for your company to actually pay for it and see how their bottom line is going to be affected, because this is part of what you can learn in the MBA program, or through fellowships or anything else that are out there. Because most of you guys are technical backgrounds, which is an anomaly itself in in America itself. So you have to use that to an advantage to yourself to actually help fund your careers off of that. Because again, if you look at the stats on who you are and what you actually have value to add to companies, it's phenomenal. But sometimes you don't look at it that way. And like I said, again, you have to make sure that as a person of interest in the market, like I said, you are just one of a select few. A lot of times we look at it because we are isolated in a specific area that of New Jersey or wherever you placed that right now, is that you don't have that many options. Believe me, globally you have a lot of options. And like I said again, it's just a matter of how hard you look and exactly where you're looking for. So to speak to that specific point.
So misconceptions. I think one misconception that I've seen is that it's mainly for people that want to be in finance. I don't think that that's true. Like I've got friends. One of my friends, her first job after business school was running apparel marketing for the Atlanta Falcons. I had another friend who went into the beauty industry and launched, God knows how many beauty products and the strategy around those products. I've got other friends. I've got a buddy that's starting a TV channel right now, an online paid TV channel. I've got another buddy who, got into real estate, and all he does is he owns a marina in California now. I've got other friends who are in consulting. So I think, I didn't hear that, but the idea that it's only about finance would be one misconception that I've heard. Going back to the money and it's expensive part, ironically, as I mentioned, most of the minorities, most of the black folks who I went to business school with or who go to business school full time, they do go on fellowships. But I always found it interesting that our white counterparts, our Asian counterparts who are not there on fellowships, they ran the same ROI calculator spreadsheet, and they decided that even borrowing the money, even spending the $180,000, it still made sense. And that was always the head scratcher to me. Is it really that valuable that you'd be willing to take on that much debt for it, right? Why did they make that decision? And if you speak to any of my business school classmates, the folks up here, most people would say I would do it again, right? And the reason why is you got to ask yourself, again, you can make more money, sure, let's throw the money out for a second.